I was in my third round of chemotherapy when I noticed something strange on the bank app. And I don't know exactly why, but I decided to check the joint account statement, something I never do. But that day, something told me to look. 3 large transfers. One of them was for $346,720. My stomach turned to ice and my soul nearly left my body. The money had been sent directly from the joint account to a name I unfortunately recognized. Allison Monroe, the same name as the wellness consultant my husband had hired to take care of me during treatment. These past few months, he barely touched me, said he needed space, that it was too hard for him to see me like that it was all too heavy. At first, he came with me to my sessions, held my hand, brought me juice, said everything would be okay. But after the 6th chemo, the excuses started. He said the environment was too dark, that it was draining his energy, making him emotionally exhausted and traumatized until one day he just stopped coming. And that same week, he went on a spiritual retreat to come back renewed and better prepared to support me, according to him. But what he didn't know is that while he was recharging, probably beside his mistress, draining all my money without shame, I was gathering strength from a place he would never understand. And when he came back, he found out I was capable of things he wouldn't imagine, not even in his worst nightmares. My name is Claire Mitchell, and this is my revenge story. I thought I was prepared for anything, but nothing prepares you for the day your own body becomes a battlefield. Chemotherapy hit like a hurricane. My skin burned. My hair fell out in chunks on the pillow. And still, I was the one apologizing. For being weak, for being emotional, for needing help. Ethan said he was there for me, that it was all temporary, but his eyes told a different story. In the beginning, he hugged me, made dumb jokes in the waiting room, told me I was strong, that this would pass. But once the treatment got harder, he started pulling away. First came the delays, then the silence, then the excuses, meetings, traffic, bad energy, until one day, no message at all. And I knew I was going through this alone, even though his name still showed up under husband. The day I decided to shave my head completely, I asked him to be there. It was symbolic to me, a mark of courage. He said he'd rather not watch, that he couldn't handle seeing me like that. I pretended to understand, smiled over the phone, and went alone to the salon. The woman who shaved my head cried more than I did. I came home with my head wrapped in a red scarf, the one my mother gave me. Ethan wasn't home, said he needed to clear his head. That night, I slept alone with a throbbing scalp, a cold pillow, and a silence in the room that felt like it was mocking my pain. The doctor suggested I stop working, that I take a break from stress. Ethan loved the idea. Said he'd handle everything. Bills, groceries, medications. As long as I'm around, you'll only have to focus on getting better, he said. And I believed him because in that phase, we cling to any gesture of care. I started sleeping more, letting him handle it, not checking anything. The joint account was being used only by him. I thought I was in good hands. And for a while, I was until I started noticing. He seemed way too happy, like someone living a parallel life, far away from the pain of the woman he promised to love. Ethan started going out more. Said he was taking a breathwork course. Said he wanted to be a better support system, that he needed to learn how to care for someone in pain. I didn't question it. Honestly, it sounded noble. But along with this new Ethan came total absence. Chemo sessions were long, the tests exhausting, and the worst part was having no one to share it with. Even his texts became short. No affection. No questions. It was in that emptiness that he came up with a miracle solution. I hired a holistic consultant. She'll accompany you, take care of you. Her name is Allison Monroe. At first, I thought he was genuinely trying. I wanted to believe the best. Allison was sweet, soft-spoken, made ginger and lemon tea. But something about her bothered me, too present. Her perfume was too sweet. She knew too much. Where my test results were, what meds I took, and when. Ethan started quoting her constantly. Allison said this. Allison thinks that. Ask Allison. I was the one who was sick, but she was the one filling every space. When the two of them disappeared for 2 days for a breathwork retreat, I started connecting the dots. Looking back now, I see he didn't even try to hide it. But I was still missing one thing. Solid proof that I wasn't losing my mind. During a chemo session all alone, I paid for a test using the bank app. It wasn't something I usually did. Ethan always told me to let him handle it. But that day, something told me to check the statement after the payment. I saw 3 large transfers. One of them, $346,120. It felt like everything inside me just stopped. And there in the clinic's waiting room with the needle still in my arm, I realized he hadn't just betrayed me. He'd stolen from me. The nurses walked past without even noticing. I just sat there frozen. The phone slipped from my hand. The screen still lit. My world was made of tests, injections, and fragile hope. His was spas, transfers, yoga, and fresh starts. But what Ethan didn't know is that even with a weak body, my soul was waking up. And a woman who wakes up is a force no one can stop, especially when she carries pain and the will for revenge in the same chest. I promised myself I'd make him feel 1,000 times worse than I felt in that moment. But for that, I needed a well-structured plan and ice-cold focus. One day, he simply stopped pretending. He started treating me like someone he was sure would die soon, took long naps, went out to distress, bought expensive wines, like he had something to celebrate. I spent my days in bed, nauseous and dizzy, and he said he needed to clear his mind. That's when it hit me. In his mind, I wouldn't live more than 3 more months. He had already accepted my death. Already lived like a widower to someone still alive. And worse, he started spending like he was already on his own. As if what was mine, including my mother's inheritance, was some kind of lottery prize he'd just won and couldn't wait to blow. The inheritance my mother left was all the security I had. She used to say, "Claire, this money is your shield. Never depend on any man." But when I got sick, I couldn't manage everything. Honestly, I didn't even have the strength. I let Ethan handle the finances. He offered, and I would have never imagined that the man I'd been with for 10 years would do this to me. He said he wanted to spare me the stress. I agreed because I trusted him, because I loved him, because I never thought he'd take advantage of a wife going through chemo. But now everything made sense. The expensive purchases, the disappearances, the joy I hadn't seen in his face in years. While I was fighting to stay alive, he was already using my money to fund a new life. I'll never forget what I went through during that time. Alone in the dark, feeling my heart slowing down. That's when I remembered my mom and the promise I made at her funeral. I won't be weak. I won't let anyone erase me like they did to you. I took a deep breath, felt a cold rage rise up my spine. And for the first time, I didn't just want to survive. I wanted to come back. Come back with everything to make him pay for every second he treated me like I was already dead. When he returned from that so-called retreat, he came in smiling, brought me a weird necklace with colorful stones, said it was to align me with my healing purpose, that I had attracted this illness into my life, but that I could cure myself with positive energy. I thanked him with a calm smile, and when he went upstairs to shower, I opened his laptop, shaking, still weak. I started checking every statement, every transfer, every expense, every detail. And that's when I found it. A name, a number, an address, none of it mine, but all of it paid with what was. And in that moment, with cold skin and burning eyes, I decided that if death was circling me, it would have to wait. Because before I left this world, I was going to destroy his first. One of the statements showed a recent payment, $2,800 as a deposit, plus 2 months paid in advance. The account name, Allison Monroe. The destination, an address I'd never seen before. It stuck in my mind until I remembered something. Ethan had this awful habit of saving receipts in random folders on his computer. I opened the folder labeled Future Projects, one he used for work drafts. And there it was, a PDF titled Lease Unit 1702. The contract was under Allison's name, but the one who paid was him. The apartment was far away on the other side of town. A balcony, lake view, brand new appliances, all picked out with my money. My stomach turned because on that paper was the truth he never had the guts to say out loud. He was already starting over and he'd done it assuming I wouldn't be around to see it. The next day, I asked my sister to drive me to the address. I didn't tell her why, just said I needed to get out of the house. When we got there, I stayed across the street, watching from inside the car. Ethan came out shortly after, wearing light, expensive clothes, laughing on the phone. Behind him, Allison holding his hand. She was wearing one of my necklaces. In that moment, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt one thing with absolute clarity. This wasn't going to end like that. And so, with a weak body and a soul on fire, I started building the plan that would destroy both of them publicly, with the same coldness they used to erase me in my most fragile moment. The next day, Allison showed up with fresh juice, a little flower in her hair, and a calm smile that made me sick. You need to keep your mind peaceful, Claire, she said, as if she were talking to a child. As if she wasn't the one sleeping with my husband while I fought for my life. I pretended it didn't hurt. Pretended I didn't know. But every one of her gestures, every touch, every take care of yourself was a disguised insult. She cared for me the way someone feeds a wounded bird, just waiting for it to die. I didn't cry anymore. Not from anger, not from humiliation. I just observed. She made my bed like it was hers. Stored my medication in the same cabinet where I kept old letters. She was everywhere. It was like she was rehearsing to take my place with my permission. When she left to buy flowers, of course. Flowers, I opened the laptop, created a new folder. I named it Evidence. Every receipt, every bank statement, every email screenshot Ethan had forgotten to delete. I gathered it all calmly, coldly, strategically, because if they thought I was going to die quietly, they were wrong. I was still here. And now, I was dangerous. I reached out to the lawyer who handled my mother's inheritance. I went to his office in person, even though I was trembling with weakness, handed him the folder with the evidence, told him everything. He looked at me with the seriousness of someone who knows what's at stake. You have a strong case, Claire, and if you take this to court, he's going to come out of it worse than you can imagine. That was it. I didn't want a scandal. I wanted strategy and justice. In the days that followed, I kept up the act. Let Ethan kiss me on the forehead like he was the hero of the story. Let Allison make chamomile tea, rub ointment, fill the house with that sweet and venomous voice. She didn't do it out of compassion. She did it because she already felt like she owned the place, but I let her because now I was collecting evidence. She was good at pretending, but I was better. I faked gratitude, faked weakness, faked ignorance. Meanwhile, my evidence folder kept growing. And my soul was starting to breathe again because the more she served me with that fake smile, the more I knew that what was coming next would be even better, more precise, more destructive. Until one night she left her phone unlocked on the counter and I read and photographed the message that would seal their fate. Because this wasn't just betrayal, it was a crime. Pretending to look for a medicine, I walked up quietly. The chat name, Ethan. I opened it with a quick swipe and the first sentence knocked the air out of my lungs. She's getting worse fast. Soon we'll have it all wrapped up. I scrolled slowly. They were talking about me like I was already buried, like I was an obstacle, a nuisance. They were discussing money, the final transfer, closing everything out. Ethan said, the next step was getting everything squared away with the lawyer. Allison replied with a heart emoji. At that moment, I snapped a picture of the screen and emailed it to myself. I went back to the living room and sat on the couch like nothing had happened. She brought me tea, tucked me in under a blanket, and wished me good night. I thanked her, almost smiled, but inside something had shifted. I was no longer just a betrayed wife. I was a victim with proof of a conspiracy. The next morning, I reached out to an old friend of my mother's. She worked in security systems and owed our family a favor. I explained I needed a discreet camera installed in the hallway between the kitchen and the bedroom. She didn't ask questions. By the end of the day, it was all set up and I had access from my own phone. Little by little, I got addicted to the footage. I'd watch everything from my bed in silence with headphones in. They moved through the house like I was a piece of furniture. Ethan would sometimes pull her close by the waist in the kitchen talking about the new apartment. Allison rifled through my things like she already owned them. And now it was all being recorded. A week later, I caught an entire scene. They were talking about the inheritance. Allison suggested Ethan should speed things up. He hesitated, said he needed to wait for the final medical report. She snapped back, "What are you waiting for? For her to die naturally?" The camera caught everything, even the silence afterward. The silence of two people in agreement. That night, I saved the video and sent it to the lawyer. And for the first time in a long time, I slept peacefully. My body was still weak, but my mind had never been sharper. And I knew that this revenge had everything it needed to be perfect. I started saying I was more tired, weaker. I faked more coughing, spoke slower. Ethan always asked, "Do you want Allison to sleep over tonight?" I'd shake my head with a sad smile. I'd rather be alone. They believed it because they wanted to believe it. Meanwhile, I was getting better in secret. Little by little, the fever faded. The nausea eased. But I pretended otherwise. Every fake groan was a disguise. Every dramatic sigh, a shield. Ethan started letting his guard down. He thought everything was under control. Allison, more cautious, watched me sideways, but she had no proof. And me? I had plenty. I caught another incriminating recording with the hidden camera. It captured Ethan on the phone with someone from the bank. He was asking about early liquidation of joint assets. His voice was technical, cold, practical, as if I didn't exist anymore. That night before bed, Ethan knocked on my door holding an envelope. He said it was just a security document, nothing urgent. I smiled, weak, voice low, and said, "Leave it on the dresser. I'll sign it tomorrow if I'm still alive." When he left, I opened the document with trembling hands. It was a formal request to move the only money still under my name and not in our joint account. He said he'd found an incredible treatment overseas. Said it was a clinic in Toronto with more modern, less aggressive therapies. Told me he'd already reached out, that they needed an upfront deposit, and that if I wanted to live, I couldn't waste time with paperwork. But I looked it up, and the clinic didn't exist. The email was fake. It was all part of a scam. He really thought that on top of being weak, I was stupid. That money was the only thing I'd never touched. And he knew it. He wanted to leave me with nothing. He truly believed I was going to die and planned to drain every last cent so not even my relatives could inherit a penny. When I woke up, I told him I was confused by the terms and needed help understanding them. He hugged me tight, said he'd take care of everything, and that I just needed to trust him as if that still existed. Later that day, I went back to see the lawyer. I brought the document, showed him every detail, and he was blunt. "This man is trying to wipe out everything that's yours." In that moment, I wasn't just a recovering patient. I was a woman about to strike back. I started waking up different, stronger, more certain. The kind of certainty that doesn't tremble anymore. Because when a woman bleeds in silence for too long, there comes a time she stops crying and starts acting. I made myself a cup of tea, put lipstick on my cracked lips, and opened the computer. The lawyer had messaged me. "It's all here, Claire, we've got enough. The statements, the recordings, the documents, the fake contract with the Canadian clinic, the attempt to move my personal fund, the account in the mistress's name, the request to remove me from my own life insurance." It wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated. It was criminal. Ethan left saying he was going to the pharmacy for vitamins, but I knew exactly where he was headed. That lakeside apartment with the perfect view for fresh starts. Before the door even shut, I was already on the phone with the bank, freezing funds, activating locks, initiating official traces. The lawyer guided me step by step over video call. Meanwhile, I sent a short message to Allison from my number. "I know everything." Then I left the phone on the counter turned off so they couldn't track it. Right after, I emailed all the documents to the lawyer and to myself in an encrypted backup. If anything happened, it was no longer a secret. Before leaving, I changed clothes. No headscarf, no sick face. I put on my mother's red blouse, a firm pair of jeans, and lipstick. For the first time in months, I looked at myself in the mirror without fear, and I saw me whole, alive. I arrived at the lawyer's office at exactly 2 p.m. The complaint was filed right then and there with all evidence attached and a request for immediate freezing of assets in his and her name. The plan wasn't just mine anymore. Now it was the law. And when Ethan came home, he found the locks changed and a note. "You thought I was weak. Now you'll feel the weight of my strength." He had no idea what was about to hit him. It took less than an hour. Ethan's phone started ringing nonstop. First, it was the bank, then the accountant, then his lawyer. Well, our lawyer until 2 weeks ago. From the couch at my sister's house, I watched it all on my tablet, sipping tea and gently resting my hand over my chemo-swollen belly. The joint account was frozen, and the evidence from the complaint was forwarded to the financial fraud unit. Within 2 days, the assets in the mistress's name were also pulled into the investigation. Allison tried to act fast, to withdraw, to hide, but it was too late. The Fresh Start address was now part of a court order. Ethan tried calling me 10 times. Then came the messages, begging, accusing, crying. "Claire, what did you do?" one read. "You're going to destroy everything out of spite," said another. But he was the one who destroyed everything. I just protected myself. Allison, meanwhile, disappeared off the map, returned the car, changed her number, stepped down from the position she never had. Ethan went after her, found out she was already looking for a lawyer. That's how fear works. When it hits, everyone runs. and those who plotted together now hide alone. That night, I slept with the door locked, and a plan fully in motion because Ethan thought he had won, thought I was too weak to fight back. But what he didn't know is that I had already won, and his downfall was just a matter of time. Sometime later, I went back to the hospital. No tears, no fear. On the medical chart, my latest test showed something different, stable, promising. The doctor looked at me surprised. "You look stronger?" And I smiled because it was true. My body still carried scars, yes, but my soul was standing tall for the first time in a long time. I didn't say a word about what was happening, just kept going with the treatment. But behind the scarf, the soft clothes, and the calm walk, there was a woman at war, and that war was now public. Ethan had been formally summoned to testify. The case was proceeding on two fronts: civil for asset misappropriation and criminal for fraud and embezzlement. When he got the subpoena, he tried calling me, sent voice notes, emails. It was a mistake. I was lost. Allison manipulated me. But none of it shook me because this time I had the evidence and I also had time on my side. The DA's office had everything. The recordings, the transfers, the fake contract. It was all there, including the document he tried to get me to sign, the one that would have stripped me of all my assets. At the preliminary hearing, he played the victim, said he acted out of desperation, that he was seduced. But the judge looked him straight in the eyes and said, "You didn't seem so desperate when you were buying $900 French wine." The room went silent. And right then, I knew he wasn't getting out of this easily. Justice, which so often feels blind, saw clearly this time. My lawyer called at the end of the day. "Claire, it's just a matter of time. He's going to pay for everything." And I hung up with a calm I hadn't felt in months, because now I could finally breathe. The following week, I went to the salon, took off the scarf, cut the little hair that was growing back. I looked in the mirror and saw myself again. Not like before, but like someone new, stronger. I started walking more, eating better, picking up small routines. And every time a bad memory crept in, I took a deep breath and repeated, "He didn't kill me. He taught me how to live." My mother always said, the most powerful kind of revenge is the one carried out with dignity. And watching Ethan be judged, humiliated, and lose everything without me lifting a finger, that was it. I didn't need to scream or stoop to his level. All I had to do was survive. And I did, more alive than ever. The judge made it clear when delivering the sentence. 3 years in prison, no parole, partial loss of civil rights, and full restitution of the stolen funds. Ethan cried, begged, said prison would ruin him, that it would break him. But by that point, no one cared. The victim of that story had a name, a face, and was standing tall, staring her abuser in the eye. Allison had vanished, but the police found her. She got 2 years. At my final chemo session, the nurses applauded me. The tumor had shrunk. Today, Ethan lives with his mother, the one who always hated me, but now calls him the shame of the family. And me? I sleep in peace with clean scans and a clean name. Slowly, I got everything back. My body, my self-worth, my will to live. I got a new tattoo on my wrist, the letter M for Mitchell, my mother's last name. I started walking in the park again, cooking for myself, and I realized revenge wasn't watching him suffer. It was seeing myself happy again, without fear, without pain, and without him.